They never thought the quiet one would be the storm. They never prepared for the possibility that the one they mocked, ignored, and tried to bury was the very force holding everything together. But here you are, chosen one. Not loud, not flashy, but undeniable. The more they schemed in the shadows, the more light surrounded you. Every fake smile they threw, every trap they set, every lie they whispered only pushed you further into alignment with something they couldn't touch. They thought their dirty tricks would block your path, but all it did was redirect your steps toward a higher level. See, this isn't just about them losing. This is about you becoming untouchable in ways they never saw coming. You didn't shout back. You didn't play dirty. You outlasted them. And now it's not karma hitting them. It's consequence. Their own twisted moves are turning against them. Their manipulation exposed. Their envy eating them alive. Meanwhile, your presence grows heavier. Your wins come faster. You've become the person their lies couldn't destroy. You've become the one they fear in silence. Because power like yours doesn't need to beg. It just walks in and shifts the entire room. So if you feel that energy rising in you right now, don't hold back. Like this video. Subscribe to this channel. You didn't come this far to stay quiet. Let's remind them. The power of being chosen isn't about being better. It's about being real. And that kind of authenticity haunts people who only know how to pretend. They played with your name when you were humble. Now they can't say it without choking. Keep rising. They can't block what they can't reach. Before moving ahead, let me pause and extend my deepest thanks to those of you who've supported this mission through Super Thanks. Your generosity isn't just a digital act. It's a sacred echo, a sign that your spirit recognizes the truth behind these words and the higher purpose we're all rising into. It tells me you're not just here to watch the battle unfold. You're here because you know you've been chosen, and your support keeps this movement alive, reaching those still hidden in the shadows of doubt and betrayal. If something inside you knows this message was meant for you, if your spirit feels seen in every word, take a moment and affirm it in quiet power. Comment 999 below, not out of pressure, but as a personal declaration that you are aligned with your calling, that your light is rising, and that no force formed against your truth will prevail. Number 1. Stop assuming you're invisible. They're just too loud to recognize power in silence. You didn't ask to be noticed. You just kept showing up. You didn't try to prove yourself. You were the proof, walking in silence, moving with purpose, breathing in rooms that couldn't even register your presence, because their senses were dulled by their own illusions. Dear chosen one, it's not that you were ever hiding, it's that their minds were too clouded with ego and noise to comprehend anything outside their scripted reality. You stood in front of them as the answer, and they still couldn't solve the equation because you didn't look like the solution they imagined. But now, the noise is gone, and your presence is undeniable. They looked past you not because you were forgettable, but because their perception was broken. When people are consumed by their own delusions of status and power, anything authentic feels invisible. You didn't match their mold. You were too calm, too real, too complex to be simplified. And in a world that worships convenience, depth gets overlooked. So they minimized you, misread you, talked over you, while secretly trying to imitate your energy without ever understanding where it came from. They wanted to package you, profit from you, label you. But your essence, it refuses to be reduced. What's wild is, you didn't resist. You let them think they had you figured out. You let them overlook you while you studied every move, while you healed in silence, and while you waited. Not for approval, but for alignment. You knew who you were before anyone ever clapped for it. They thought you were still on page 1, but you were already writing the final chapter. the one where your power no longer hides to keep people comfortable. And now that your time has come, their denial is collapsing in real time. They're sitting in the ruins of their own noise, wondering how they missed it. They see your name being spoken in rooms they couldn't even enter. They hear your story being told with reverence, and suddenly they want to act like they always knew. But let's not rewrite history. They didn't see you. They refused to, because if they had acknowledged your light back then, they would have had to confront their own shadows. And most people aren't ready for that. Now they're left replaying moments with you, trying to piece together how they could have been so wrong. And you're not explaining a thing. You're not slowing down to be understood. Because being chosen isn't about waiting for permission. It's about moving like the door was always open. You don't need to fight for recognition anymore. The truth has already echoed louder than their denial ever could. And the ones who once overlooked you are learning. Sometimes the quietest presence leaves the loudest legacy. Number 2. Don't chase evolution. Strip away the lies and remember who you were before the world lied. Chosen one, you were never broken. You were buried, and that's a whole different story. The world tried to convince you that your growth depended on becoming someone else, someone quieter, easier to manage, easier to forget. But you were never meant to be edited. You were meant to be revealed. And that revelation doesn't come from chasing trends, titles, or outside validation. It comes from stripping away everything this world projected onto you. The false identities, the shame, the doubt, until all that's left is the raw, unfiltered version of who you've always been. You didn't evolve into power. You peeled back the illusion and remembered your power. You didn't become something new. You returned to the truth that had always been written in your DNA. The one they told you was too much, too intense, too real. But now look, the same traits they once tried to erase are the same traits lighting the way for others in the dark. See, evolution isn't about becoming what they expect. It's about unlearning what they injected. You've reclaimed your mind, your voice, your fire, and now they're scrambling to keep up with a version of you that no longer waits to be seen. You didn't change, you remembered, and that's what scares them. Because the moment you stopped shrinking to fit their comfort, your presence became a mirror they couldn't run from. Keep shedding the lies, chosen one. The real you was always enough. Number 3. Quit trying to be useful to the wrong people. They only value what they can exploit. Dear chosen one, the moment you stopped being their free emotional labor, their silent strength, their backup plan, they labeled you selfish. But let's get one thing straight. You were never hard to love. They were just too addicted to taking. They didn't value your presence. They calculated it. They didn't appreciate your heart. They measured how much they could extract from it. You weren't a friend to them. You were a resource. See, some people don't love you. They love what you do for them. And the moment you stop showing up on command, you become difficult, cold, or changed. But the truth is, you just stopped betraying yourself to keep their illusions afloat. They didn't see your energy as sacred. They saw it as fuel. You were the battery powering their comfort, and when you pulled back, their entire system glitched. Stop trying to prove your worth to people who only recognize you when they need something. Your presence is not a service. Your light is not a convenience. You weren't built to be background support in someone else's performance. You're not here to be understood by those who only listen when it benefits them. You're here to move in alignment, not servitude. Let them call it arrogance. Let them say you've changed. The truth is you've risen. And from where you stand now, you can finally see who was clapping for you. and who was simply clapping for what they got from you. They didn't lose access because you became selfish. They lost access because you finally became selective. And that shift? That's where your power truly begins. If this message stirred something real in you, a quiet reminder of who you are and what you carry, go ahead and like the video and subscribe, not for hype, but as a personal affirmation that you're walking in purpose, not playing the game they thought you were in. Number 4. Stop explaining your silence. It's the loudest move you've got. There's something terrifying about a person who goes silent, not because they're defeated, but because they've outgrown the need to speak. That's you, chosen one. Your silence wasn't confusion. It wasn't weakness. It was a calculated power move, a boundary. And the ones who mistook it for retreat are now choking on the consequences. They expected noise, reaction, chaos. But instead, you gave them silence so sharp, it became a mirror they couldn't look into without seeing their own mess staring back. You stopped explaining your heart to people who only showed up with noise. You stopped justifying your stillness to those who thrive on drama. They wanted you to keep talking so they could twist your words, mock your vulnerability, or pretend they were listening while secretly preparing their next move. But when you went quiet, when you disappeared without warning, that's when their comfort collapsed. That's when they had to sit in the echo of everything you used to hold together, the conversations, the peace, the alignment. Silence makes cowards nervous because they can't predict it. They don't know what you're thinking, planning, or healing. And that unknowing, that's power, that's presence. You didn't slam doors. You just left them open and walked away. And now they're standing in front of those same doors, replaying every moment, trying to decode a silence that never needed explaining. So don't start talking now. Don't break that sacred quiet just to comfort those who once ignored your voice. Let them sit with it. Let the weight of your absence teach them what your presence tried to warn them about. You're not being quiet because you're weak. You're being quiet because you're finished. And that silence is screaming the truth louder than words ever could. Number 5. Don't mistake being grounded for being small. Your quiet confidence is making them panic. They thought your stillness meant you had no power. They mistook your silence for absence and your grounded nature for insignificance. But here's the truth, chosen one, you weren't quiet because you had nothing to say. You were quiet because you didn't need noise to prove your worth. And that alone is what's shaking them now. You weren't competing. You weren't boasting. You weren't begging to be seen. You were too busy becoming. While they flexed for attention and played loud games to feel important, you stayed anchored. And now that your presence speaks for itself, they're panicking. Why? Because real confidence doesn't shout. It walks in and shifts the entire room. And that's what you're doing just by existing in your full truth. They called you small because they couldn't measure you. They couldn't categorize your strength because it didn't look like what they were used to. They expected loud dominance, not silent certainty. But your quiet energy made them feel exposed. You didn't have to clap back or show off. Your restraint said more than their chaos ever could. And now the same ones who looked down on your calm demeanor are watching their world shake because of it. Your groundedness unsettles them. Your centered energy reveals their instability. Your presence is pressure without effort. And that's exactly why they're scrambling. They don't fear the loud ones anymore. They fear the ones who move with peace, purpose, and a power they can't touch. Because nothing is more terrifying to the insecure than a chosen one who knows they don't need to prove anything at all. Keep standing tall, grounded and unshaken. That's what makes you unstoppable. Number 6. Let them copy the look. Just know they'll never inherit the fire that forged you. They can wear the outfit, mimic the words, even study your movements like it's a blueprint. But here's what they'll never grasp. What forged you wasn't visible. It wasn't aesthetic. It was agony. It was the silence you sat in when nobody clapped. It was the weight you carried while they partied. It was the nights you stared at the ceiling, doubting your worth, only to rise again with more strength than sense. And that fire? That can't be imitated. That's earned in pain, in persistence, in spiritual solitude. Let them dress like you, talk like you, even try to walk like you. The shell is easy. It's the soul they can't replicate. Because while they were trying to download your energy from the outside, you were burning from the inside, transforming every scar into strategy, every rejection into refinement. They thought this was a costume. You were building character. They can study the rhythm, but they don't have the melody. Your frequency is coded from battles they didn't fight, storms they didn't survive, and lessons they never lived through. And when they try to walk in your essence, it collapses, because it was never theirs to hold. Let them keep pretending, you keep becoming. Number 7. Don't let them call it luck. You bled for this, in battles they never saw. They'll call it luck now because it's easier than admitting they were wrong about you from the beginning. They'll say you got lucky, that you stumbled into success, that things just started going your way. But chosen one, you and I both know, they didn't see the nights you cried in silence, the mornings you got up with nothing left inside you, but still moved like you had everything to prove. They weren't there when everything you trusted crumbled and you still kept building. They didn't see the betrayals, the setbacks, the spiritual warfare you fought with a smile on your face and a storm in your chest. They missed every sacrifice, every decision to rise instead of run. You survived while bleeding in places no one knew you were cut. You held your tongue when lies were louder than truth. You stood still when every part of you wanted to shatter. That wasn't luck. That was endurance. That was divine precision meeting disciplined preparation. You were being shaped in pain while they were flexing for attention. And now that it's your season, they want to pretend it all just worked out. Let them talk. Let them guess. Let them convince themselves it was effortless, because they don't have the depth to understand resilience. But never let their ignorance become your narrative. You didn't get here by chance. You got here by fire, and anyone who tries to call it luck clearly hasn't earned anything worth bleeding for. Stand proud, chosen one, because what you carry can't be handed out. It had to be survived for. And you survived in silence, and now you're winning in thunder. Number 8. Stop waiting to be discovered. You were always the blueprint. Now build like it. Chosen one, the wait is over, and it always should have been. You've spent too much time shrinking, second-guessing, wondering when someone would finally see you, recognize you, validate what's been alive in your spirit since the beginning. But here's the truth they'll never admit. They saw you. They all did. They just hoped you wouldn't see yourself. They hoped you'd keep waiting for a handout, a spotlight, a green light from the very people who benefited from you, staying unsure of your own greatness. But let's make something clear. You were never meant to be discovered. You were designed. You were drafted in precision, formed with fire, and laced with legacy. You were the blueprint the whole time, the map, the framework, the foundation. They thought you were waiting to become something, when really, you were the standard they couldn't replicate. While they were out there looking for the next big thing, they didn't realize they were walking past the original. You don't need validation to break ground. You don't need permission to create. You don't need applause to start building what was always yours. It's time to stop looking around and start building up. No more hiding your plans, your voice, your presence. You've outgrown the shadows they tried to keep you in. And now it's time to walk like you are the blueprint. Move like your legacy is already under construction. Speak like every word echoes forward into the future you're carving out. The wait is done. The silence is broken. And the foundation, that's you. They'll say, "Where did this come from?" And you'll smile, because you always knew. You didn't just appear. You were built for this. Now build like it. If this message stirred something real in you, a quiet reminder of who you are and what you carry, go ahead and like the video and subscribe. Not for hype, but as a personal affirmation that you're walking in purpose, not playing the game they thought you were in. Number 9. Don't rush to prove you've healed. That quiet growth made you untouchable. They thought your silence meant surrender. They assumed your distance was defeat. But what they never understood, chosen one, is that your healing was never for show. It was a sacred reconstruction done behind closed doors. While they gossiped, you gathered strength. While they watched for signs of collapse, you rebuilt in silence. And now, they're confused by the calm in your energy, the steel in your voice, the power in your stillness, because they expected noise, not mastery. You didn't broadcast your journey, and that's what scares them. They don't know how to process the version of you that didn't need to announce the comeback, because you are the comeback. Quiet growth is terrifying to people who rely on attention to feel worthy. You didn't need applause. You needed alignment. You didn't need validation. You needed vision. And now, every step you take is built on a foundation they can't shake, because it was laid in the dark, away from their judgment and distractions. You didn't rush to be seen. You healed to become whole. And that's what makes you untouchable. Not because you're flawless, but because you faced what they run from and still rose. You didn't return the same. You returned evolved, sharpened, clean. And now your silence isn't quiet anymore. It's deafening. Number 10. Don't dim your truth to protect their illusions. You're not here to be digestible. They couldn't handle your truth, so they asked you to shrink. Not with words, but with reactions, with dismissals, with silence whenever you showed up too real, too raw, too grounded in something they couldn't manipulate. Chosen one, you've been taught to soften your edges so their masks wouldn't crack. You've been told to dilute your message so it wouldn't sting the fragile. But here's the truth. Your authenticity was never meant to comfort those built on lies. You're not here to be easy to swallow. You're here to be undeniable. They crafted false identities out of performance and pretense, and your presence alone threatened the entire illusion. You didn't have to expose them. You simply existed in your power, and it made their entire identity wobble. That's why they flinched. That's why they tried to label you as too much, too intense, too deep. Because deep down, they knew you weren't lying, and they knew they were. So don't dare dilute what was divinely shaped through pain, silence, and sacred struggle. Your story isn't here to be palatable. It's here to pierce through confusion and call others into their truth. The world doesn't need another mask. It needs what you carry. And if your presence makes liars uncomfortable, good. That's the point. Number 11. Let your presence speak before you do. Real ones shake rooms without sound. You don't need to announce your arrival anymore. The moment you walk into the room, the atmosphere changes. And not because you're loud, but because your energy hits like a memory they tried to suppress. Chosen one, your presence alone does what most people try to achieve with speeches, with noise, with fake confidence. You don't need to say a word. You are the word, and it echoes in the minds of those who once overlooked you. That's the difference. They still talk. You don't have to. It's not that you're intimidating. It's that they're insecure. It's not that you're arrogant. It's that your authenticity exposes their performance. The reason they shift uncomfortably when you're near has nothing to do with what you've done wrong, and everything to do with what they've failed to become. Because when someone like you shows up, rooted, calm, unbothered, it becomes impossible for the fakes to breathe normally. This kind of silence isn't quiet. It's commanding. It's the weight of self-respect, of unshakable identity. And when you carry that, the room doesn't just notice, it adjusts. Don't water it down. Don't over-explain it. Let them feel the heat without ever striking a match. Your power doesn't ask. It just arrives. Number 12. Don't try to beat the game. You are the game, and they're just realizing it too late. They thought they were outsmarting you, plotting in circles, pulling strings behind curtains, laughing as if they had control over the narrative. But what they never grasped, chosen one, is that you weren't playing to win their game, because the game was you all along. The moment they thought they had the upper hand was the same moment they walked into your blueprint. You didn't need to change the rules. You were the rules. While they were focused on being clever, you were being calculated. Strategic silence, patient presence. Every step they took was already accounted for. You didn't need to expose anything. Their own missteps were always going to show the truth. They tried to bait you into chaos. You gave them stillness. They tried to lure you into battles. You mastered the war they couldn't see. And now that everything's backfiring, now that the dust is clearing, they're realizing you weren't the piece. You were the whole board, and all their little moves, just echoes inside your system. The very ground they stood on belonged to you. And here's the part that cuts deep. You never had to say a word. Your results spoke. Your resilience roared. Your presence shifted the terrain without warning. Now, they're scrambling, trying to figure out when the tables turned, not knowing they were never upright to begin with. You were never trying to win. You were watching them lose before they even started. That's the kind of power you carry now. You don't need validation. You are the strategy. You are the storm. And they're just beginning to understand that you don't need a seat at the table because you built the house. And as we bring this message to a close, chosen ones, remember this: your power was never about playing along. It was always about standing firm in a truth too big to fit into their limited game. Let them scramble. Let them rethink everything they assumed. You've already moved beyond it. You are the shift they never prepared for. Walk boldly, not to be seen, but because you finally see yourself. If this message grounded something deep within you, like this video and subscribe. Not out of impulse, but as a quiet act of alignment, because your journey is far from over.